They say power reveals character, but sometimes it also reveals ignorance. For Commissioner James Carter, a man who had fought for decades to earn respect in one of the toughest police departments in the country, it wasn't a city hall speech or a criminal bust that tested him. No, his greatest test came one late evening when he was just a man in a suit behind the wheel of his own car. And the man who tested him wasn't a criminal at all. It was one of his own officers. James Carter was driving home after a long day. The city's lights glittered through his windshield, but exhaustion weighed heavy on his shoulders. He had spent the day at the governor's office, fighting for police reform, fighting for a department that looked less like the past and more like the future. His mind was elsewhere when he noticed flashing lights in the rearview mirror. A patrol car. He pulled over immediately. An officer swaggered up to his window, flashlight in hand, his smirk barely hidden under the brim of his cap. "License and registration," the officer barked. James handed them over without hesitation. His voice was calm, controlled. "Is there a problem, officer?" The man chuckled. "Yeah, the problem is guys like you driving cars like this. What is this? A stolen BMW or maybe a rental you forgot to return?" The words hit harder than a slap. James's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd been through worse. But the officer wasn't finished. He leaned in closer, sneering. "What do you do, huh? Run numbers? Sell drugs on the side? Don't play innocent with me. I've seen your type 1,000 times." James inhaled slowly. Years of training told him not to react, but inside his blood boiled. "Sir," he said evenly, "I'll have you know I work in law enforcement." The officer burst into laughter. "Law enforcement? Please don't insult me. Maybe you're a security guard at some strip mall, but a cop? You? Don't make me laugh." The irony was painful, because the man he mocked wasn't just a cop. He was the highest-ranking officer in the entire department, the police commissioner himself. But James didn't reveal it, not yet. Instead, he asked quietly, "Why did you really pull me over?" The officer shrugged with arrogance. "Because you don't belong behind the wheel of this car. Because something about you doesn't fit. And trust me, I'll find a reason to book you." James stared at him, the silence stretching. Then, finally, he reached into his briefcase. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled out a leather folder embossed with the golden seal of the state. He opened it and held it up. The officer's grin faltered. His eyes scanned the words. His face was drained of color. Commissioner James Carter, the badge read. The man he had mocked, belittled and threatened, was his boss. For a moment, the street was dead silent. The officer's hand twitched nervously near his belt. "Sir, I didn't realize." James's eyes were steady, cold with controlled anger. "No, you didn't. Because you never looked past my skin. You saw what you wanted to see, and nothing more." The officer swallowed hard, words failing him. James stepped out of his car, standing tall under the flashing red and blue lights. His presence was commanding, the kind of authority that came not from a uniform, but from decades of earning respect. "Officer," James said, his voice like steel, "call your sergeant right now." The man fumbled with his radio, his earlier arrogance shattered. Within minutes, a sergeant arrived, confusion on his face, until James turned, revealing his badge. The sergeant's jaw dropped. "Commissioner Carter," gasps echoed from the small crowd that had gathered. Phones were out, recording everything. The officer who had mocked James now stood trembling, the weight of shame crushing him. But James wasn't finished. "You wear this badge to protect and to serve," James said, his voice carrying for everyone to hear. "But tonight you used it to humiliate, to assume, and to abuse. That is not law enforcement. That is prejudice in uniform." The sergeant turned to the officer. "Hand over your badge and weapon. You're suspended, effective immediately." The crowd murmured. Some clapped. Others shook their heads in disgust. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But as James prepared to leave, his phone buzzed. A new message appeared on the screen. It was from an unknown number. "Commissioner Carter, you've made a dangerous mistake. That officer wasn't acting alone. There are more of us, and we're coming for you." James's breath caught. He glanced at the officer, still trembling in disgrace. Was this just one man's prejudice, or was it part of something much bigger? As the sergeant led the disgraced officer away, James stared into the shadows beyond the flashing lights. His instincts told him this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. Commissioner Carter had exposed one corrupt officer, but now he was facing something far worse. A network inside his own department, plotting against him from the inside. If you're really enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss my latest uploads. Now, let's continue with part 2 of this powerful story. When we left off, Police Commissioner James Carter had just revealed his true identity to the arrogant officer who mocked him. The officer's smugness crumbled into shame, and the crowd watching erupted in gasps and whispers. Justice seemed to have been served. But Commissioner Carter knew better. Because of the message that buzzed on his phone that night. "You've made a dangerous mistake. That officer wasn't acting alone. There are more of us, and we're coming for you." The words haunted him. He had spent his career fighting corruption in the department, but he had never imagined that the rot could be this close, this organized. And now it wasn't just about one arrogant officer. It was about something far bigger. The following morning, Commissioner Carter arrived at headquarters. The building loomed tall, its glass windows gleaming in the sun. But today it felt different. Cold, watching. As he entered, the usual respectful nods from officers seemed forced. Some avoided his eyes altogether. Others whispered as he walked past. In his office, his deputy, Chief Ramirez, leaned close. "Sir, you need to see this." He placed a thin folder on the desk. Inside were copies of anonymous complaints, allegations that Carter had abused his power during the traffic stop. The reports twisted the story, painting him as a tyrant who humiliated a dedicated officer in front of the public. Carter's chest tightened. "This is a smear campaign," he muttered. Ramirez nodded grimly. "It's coordinated. Someone inside is feeding this, and the timing, too perfect to be coincidence." Carter leaned back, his mind racing. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had spent decades demanding accountability from officers. Yet now, when he stood against corruption, they painted him as the corrupt one. That afternoon, a board meeting was called. The city's mayor, council members, and high-ranking officials gathered in the polished chamber. Cameras were rolling. Carter entered, shoulders square, but the atmosphere was tense. He could feel the doubt hanging in the air like smoke. Councilman Harris cleared his throat. "Commissioner Carter, the city has received multiple reports of misconduct during your encounter with Officer Daniels. Allegations that you acted with hostility, that you humiliated an officer without cause." Carter's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, Councilman, those allegations are false. There were dozens of witnesses, videos recorded by bystanders. They all show what really happened." But Harris smirked, sliding a tablet across the table. On it was a video clip, edited, cropped, twisted. It showed Carter stepping out of his car, his voice raised, but conveniently cut out the officer's insults and prejudice. The headlines beneath it screamed, "Commissioner Carter abuses rank to intimidate patrol officer." Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters scribbled notes furiously. The trap was clear. Carter stood, his voice firm but steady. "What you've just seen is a lie, a carefully edited version of the truth. And I will not stand by while a network of prejudice and corruption tries to destroy the integrity of this department." His words cut through the chamber. But still, doubt lingered. The irony was suffocating. The very man who embodied justice was now being treated as if he were the criminal. That night, Carter sat alone in his office. His phone buzzed again, another message. "Step down now, or the next video will ruin more than your career." Attached was a grainy photo of his family, his wife and daughter leaving their home. Carter's hands trembled. This was no longer just about him. The battle had reached his doorstep. Fueled by fear but also determination, Carter launched a quiet investigation. He gathered evidence from the uncut footage, contacted witnesses, and met with allies he trusted deeply. One of them was Maya, a young officer who had been there during the stop and secretly recorded the entire encounter on her phone. Uncut, unedited. "This is the truth," she said, handing him the video. "They can twist it all they want, but the truth is stronger." Carter felt a surge of hope. The next day, an emergency press conference was called. The chamber was packed, reporters, cameras, citizens eager to hear the fate of their commissioner. Councilman Harris began with his usual arrogance. "It is with regret that we must question whether Commissioner Carter still has the credibility to lead this department." "Play it," Carter interrupted. His voice was steady, but it commanded the room. On the big screen, the uncut video began. Every second, every insult, every ounce of prejudice from Officer Daniels spilled across the speakers. The officer's mocking laughter, his threats, his arrogance. And then, the moment of truth, when Carter revealed his badge as the police commissioner. The room was silent. Reporters' pens froze mid-air. Councilman Harris's face was drained of color, and then applause. It started small, then grew louder. Citizens, officers, even some council members rose to their feet. The truth was undeniable. Councilman Harris stammered, This doesn't change," but Carter's voice cut through him. "It changes everything, because the real danger isn't just one officer with prejudice. It's the system that protects him, and I will not rest until every trace of that rot is exposed." The irony was complete. The man accused of abusing power had just exposed the abuse of power itself. As the conference ended, the disgraced officer was placed on immediate suspension pending termination. Councilman Harris avoided the cameras, his face pale. Justice for now had been served, but as Carter stepped outside, his phone buzzed once more. This time the message was chillingly short. "You may have won today, but we're inside the department and we're watching your every move." Carter looked up at the sea of flashing cameras, the cheering citizens, and the officers saluting him. Outwardly, he had won, but inside, he knew the battle was far from over. The war for the soul of the department had only just begun. Life lesson. Prejudice doesn't always wear a mask. It can wear a badge, a suit, or even a smile. But the truth is always stronger than the lies that try to bury it. When you stand for integrity, you may face enemies, but you also inspire an army of allies. If you were Commissioner Carter, would you have fought the corruption publicly like he did, or tried to handle it quietly behind closed doors? Comment your answer below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button for more powerful stories like this one.